Michelle.
I'm Caramel.
Hey, best friend.
Hey, girl. How are you?
I don't know. I don't know. Business is weird right now.
Yeah. Why do you say that? Weird.
You've been watching the news. You're not crazy. You know what's happening.
Right. You got to shake off the heebie-jeebies.
Do you know it's weird. We're talking about business and being in business. That's what we always talk about. And we get up every morning, we're talking about it. And I'm just, I don't know. It is a different time to be a business owner. And I am just like, every day there is a new challenge that seems to be thrown our direction. And I started thinking about those businesses that, they're not traditional businesses.
Mm.
And
So I so so I know we were talking a little while ago, probably a couple of weeks out. We were talking about businesses that come and go based on what's going on in the world. Do you
yeah.
remember? Do you remember the cupcake business? Do you remember that? Do you remember
the
the
decadent,
designer cupcakes?
yeah, the decadent cupcakes where you paid $30, $40 for a cupcake and you're like,
Yeah. Yeah.
wonder how many of those are still around.
I don't know, but I remember that cupcakes were going at that time for $3.50 to $6 a cupcake. And I remember that some of these places, people were standing, around the block. The lines were around the block to get these cupcakes. I think now there's one it's called a
Well, don't say their name because we
cronut.
might say something.
No, the cronuts, like the
Yeah.
cronuts. You
Okay.
heard of the cronut?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and how someone thinks that they were the ones who invented the cronut, and then somebody said, but at the end of the day, a cronut is a cronut, just like a cupcake is a cupcake.
Well, and then it's some frosting and some cake, little cake. And so, I mean, I'm sure a regular baker can do a little fancy swirl. Like, did you have to have a cupcake shop and that's all they do there? Whereas a regular bakery can, I think that's where the flaw in the concept there was. And I think sometimes when people are coming up with what's a brick and mortar and I should
Yeah.
have my own brick and mortar, I think you have to be careful because, everything doesn't deserve its own brick and mortar. It may need to be in there with something else. Like I think you told me the story about the piercings, the business that opened
Yeah,
in.
but before that, I remember wanting to be in business so bad for years, right? I wanted some type of business. And then remember I had the tax business, the
Oh,
tax court
absolutely.
business. And here in Kansas City, I remember going to a couple of locations to see about opening up a brick and mortar. And I think at the time the rent was going to be like $1,000 a month. But of course, when you have a brick and mortar, people don't remember it's not just the rent. It's the utilities, it's
Oh
the
yeah.
desk equipment, it's
Oh
all of
yeah.
the things that go into running it. And I was like, all of those costs. And I remember one of my financial advisor off of my kitchen cabinet, or you guys call them board of directors. I remember Kenny saying, "Girl, just stay online at your office at home, because when you get into that brick and mortar, you're going to have to spend a lot of money to make sure you can keep that overhead up." And I thought, and when I did that, I finally did that analysis, I realized that brick and mortar was going to cost me probably about 2 or 3 thousand a month, and I just wasn't willing to invest in that, right?
Or did you need to invest that? Was that $2,000 and $3,000 a month that you spend? Were you going to get more business than what you were actually getting? Because see, what I've learned, and I feel like a light bulb went off when we talk about growing and scaling, and
Sure.
just realizing that growing and buying new products and new stuff and doing and
Mhm,
putting and growing, sometimes if you look at the net money that you make,
mhm.
it's the same net money as when you were smaller, but you just feel better because to say I got 10 employees as opposed to two,
And
or I got 3 or 4 locations.
so I've been very interesting. Grant Cardone has the 10 times, right? The 10x.
Oh,
And
I
I
love it. Love
and
Grant
and he
Cardone.
says in every industry, for every person you have, there needs to be revenue of $500,000. And I was like, that's a hell of a thing to say out loud. And he gave the philosophy behind it. One of his gurus, I saw him on Facebook or whatever it was. I was watching a little video clip of it. And basically what he was saying is, if you are a business at this level, small business, and it's just you or one other person, to get to that 4 people, what that has to look like in order for that, like you just said, instead of growing and scaling, what scaling's like, I should be able to do with those 2 people what I'm the business that I want to do, and that's scaling. Whereas growing is I gotta have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to get to that number, and that number still
Growing
doesn't make
can
a
make you
difference.
growing can make you feel like you doing something, that you doing business. I
Yeah.
remember being in that phase at the height of having the agencies. I remember having 10 employees. We were having retreats and we had 2 locations, and
Sure.
it helped create the name Michelle Coley. You know what I mean? It's like that
Yeah.
became, that's how the legend grew. But now I'm making as much money as now with the smaller team as I was with the bigger team. And so that's when I think about the FAD business. That's why I talk about with business. I'm at that crossroads right now where I'm having to make a decision. I
Sure.
need to grow a little bit, but I'm trying to scale.
At how
Like
much do you need to grow? And
and and
then where
and
does scale meet that, right?
cash flow, the cash flow dictates a lot of things. And so I just think about those fad businesses, and I see now, because as we've been in business going on 6 years now. We're ebbing towards 6 years now.
Yeah.
And so as we sit and talk about that, and I think about it, I realize, I said, you have to think through a business. That's why they ask you to do a business plan.
Yeah.
That's why the bank asks you to be in business 2 years before they give you some of their money,
Yep.
because you had a great idea and it was working online, but you just had to have a brick and mortar so you could say, I got a brick and mortar. But
Well,
tell the
so
piercing
so
company.
I just recently took Elena to get her ears pierced at this ear piercing place. It just came up in the plaza. The plaza is this big outdoor. It's actually one of the first outdoor malls. I think it was in the country. Nichols is the one who built it. It was in its time back in the 60s, I think it was. It was the thing, and so. I went there. It's an ear piercing place. That's what they do. They pierce ears or cartilage or whatever you want piercings. And we were there for their soft grand opening. So we just happened to walk by and said, "Oh, Elena's been wanting to have her second piercing. Let's go in." I did get it done at that time. And then we had a problem. So we've been trying to get back to that place. I think she got it done at the end of April. I'm thinking it was like maybe let's say 12 weeks ago. Well, we tried the next month to go in and say, "Hey, the office, it was closed. The door was closed. There was nobody there." And it was like, their office, they're open till 7. Why are they? Then we went back again. We tried to make a phone call. There were no appointments. So finally we were able to get back in there, and it was like, wow, these folks are, I think that they're having real big issues because their model is that it has to be a licensed nurse who does the
Oh,
piercings.
oh yeah. You don't have first off, I can already tell you, you don't have enough business for a licensed nurse to sit there all day. You're
I'm
not.
not going to argue whether or not they have it to
I
do.
will. I will. I'll say it. That see, you get so specific with who the people are, so they know who we're talking about. But I'm just going to tell you, when you start your model with a licensed nurse, the kind of money nurses make, you're not doing that in a year for piercings. Okay, it's just not.
So I'm curious about how they happen to be a franchise. I'm curious of how it's going to fare. Just after being there and understanding their model and not having the access that would need to be, that I thought a regular customer should have, I recognized, like she said, "Oh yeah, our manager's out." Even yesterday when I was there, the manager was out. She was the only one there. There were people waiting around. We waited about 45 minutes. And then what really irritated me is I got charged for the re-piercing when they had already tried it twice at the time and it was the same ear. And so I thought, man,
So
they
how
lose.
much? Okay, let's just do some quick math. How much did you pay for that time? How much did you pay for it?
I paid the initial piercings for both ears. I think I paid $127. And then this last time I had to pay 35 bucks.
I, a registered nurse. I need a registered nurse in a hospital, not doing some piercings. I'm sorry. Anyway. So there
Well,
you go.
let's talk about that. So what we're saying is we're looking at a business and what they're deciding to do. And as a business owner, kind of picking apart what we think would be the demise of said business, right?
And I listen, and I joke, she tells me I'm the hard one. I'll just say it how it is. I have
Right.
this very direct opinions and stuff. And the
Hmm.
reason why I say that is that if I was on the Shark Tank and they came in, that's how they talk to them on the Shark Tank. It's like, yeah,
Sure. But
this
here's the thing. There are some folks that the sharks turn down that end up doing very well.
well,
Now,
that's like any situation. That's anything where, I know one person that did make $1 million. Yeah, I did lose weight eating McDonald's every day. I know one person who did. Okay. There's always the outlier or the person who, their one
sure.
success story, but on average, if we take the whole
And
most,
mhm.
and they probably had to go back and do something that the sharks told them. It wasn't just
And
they
we
kept it.
said this too. Perseverance and consistency will get anybody through.
Absolutely. If you
Now,
keep on making widgets long enough, eventually, uh, Jeff Bezos,
yeah.
Amazon, and all of that. How long was Amazon around before it caught? Now he's a genius now, but I'm pretty sure about 10, 15 years he was doing
Yeah.
something. His people were like, Jeff, let it go.
And so, when I'm thinking about FAD business, so I've had to think about my own business, right? At what point is my own business one if that it would need to go into brick and mortar? Like, I don't know when that would be. Would there be an opportunity for me to move into brick and mortar? What would that look like? Why would we need to go brick and mortar? What would be the reason? And I don't know if I've had a good reason to go brick and mortar yet because I wanted so badly to have an office.
I don't see the travel being necessary because you don't do necessarily local in the area people. You know what I mean? I feel like when you have a brick and mortar, it needs to be something that local people are going to come and patronize and utilize because you're no longer able to take advantage of the full. Now you might need a storefront. Like I say I'm a bakery and I'm going to bake the goods there and I
Mhm,
ship them. Okay. And I can have a little storefront because we're going to be there anyway. But
mhm.
if the business is set up just for us to do, we got to be here to sell cakes. We don't make the cakes there. We're just coming in to do, you know what I mean? I don't
And
have
there
any
are
other.
even some we were talking a little earlier, and I remember, and I thought that that was interesting, that there are even some fad businesses, even online e-commerce, right? So, for example, everyone will not be a social media influencer.
Yeah, you know, because I was thinking about this. There were people that I used to watch all the time. I love to see what they're doing, but it's like only so many times you can dress up like the crazy auntie, the drunk auntie. Like I've seen everybody do that version now of that,
Mhm.
so it's kind of like, I need something new. Well, there are only so many new ideas under the sun. You know what I mean?
But
It's
I was
like,
gonna say that the social media influencers that do the thing are the ones who are able to pivot. Now let's talk about, my favorite story behind this, my favorite case study is Cardi B. Because I think Cardi B was able to move from one situation to the next situation to the next situation and continue to move forward to where you don't even remember when she was
Cardi B's
Cardi
a
B.
survivor. She's a survivor. When you hear her whole story going from the pole
Yeah.
to reality TV to, you know, I say the term I like to use parlay. How that's an old term from back in the day. How you parlayed something, how you were able to take something, an opportunity.
Yep.
Kim, to me, my ultimate story is Kim Kardashian.
Ah, okay.
They parlayed into a couple of billionaires and others with six-figure millionaires.
Yeah.
So I feel like they took a bad situation, capitalized on the medium that was out there, and they were able to move. I thought that was fabulous.
Well, I
Um,
think that that goes back into there are some of those celebrities that, you see they're a cautionary tale, right? They did not parlay. They did not pivot. And the fad, it kind of went away. Like, to your point, if you dressing up like the auntie, at some point, I feel like that auntie needs to expand into grandma, grandpa, or you're adding people. Like, something has to happen to where you'll keep those people attention, which goes back to, is it a fad business? One viral video was not going to be enough, right?
but then how do you continue to have viral videos? How that's a work. That's work. And a lot of people, just let's be honest, a lot of people, you think being the top influencers, they work at it, they
They
study
do.
it, they spend the time on it.
They
It's
do.
not just, hey, I woke up like this.
No.
And I'm successful people, it takes work.
Yeah.
I'm even if you're an entertainer, very few things are you going to be successful and you just woke up like this.
I just watched Jay-Z say something on a clip where he said, you know what? He said, people emulate the finished product. They never
Ah,
emulate the work.
oh yeah. Oh yeah. There
And
it
so
is.
that's key when you think about that. The finished product is all polished and look good. And look at this and the website and the this and the that, the Lamborghini, the whatever they have. But the work to have those things is what people never think about that. And there was some real work behind that. And we talk about that all the time.
And I say to you, you know, when we say fat, your business will work if you work. And we did a whole show about your business will go as long as you continue to do the business.
That's correct.
You know, and it's simple as that. There could be somebody still out there doing beanie babies.
Yep.
making beanie babies. As long as they can keep making beanie babies and put the effort and energy in, somebody buying beanie babies somewhere,
And
you know?
I remember I used to do that I used to do a training, 100 ways to make $100.
Oh
And
yeah.
and the idea is behind that. I didn't like the way you just rolled your eyes when I said that. Like that is a
Oh,
legit.
absolutely. No, I apologize. Did not mean that in any way. That was absolutely a legitimate. That was the
Because
first platform.
Because at the end of the day, what I was really saying to everyone is the idea that you think that the 9 to 5 is the only way is wrong, number one. And furthermore, whatever it is that you're going to do, there's a market for it. That's how it works, right? So I remember a guy said he used to pick up old people, pick up people's sofas for $50, go in there, clean them up, put new pillows for $50, and he would sell it for $400, calling it vintage. What? Not
Somebody
no.
think about this is the business here. When you buy a new washer and dryer, usually it's only one of them that's broken.
Yeah.
And so I'll go because I recently purchased two new ones and the dryer was still working. I just wanted somebody to haul it away.
Yep.
They could have just taken it. That's a whole business.
Yep.
You get to get one. All you gotta do is mix and match. Now you can have a place set them up. People
Yep.
come know they can buy mix and match washer and dryers, $50, $100. You got it for
And I
free.
think I think what we're really saying, and I don't know if this is the right thing to say. I'm gonna say it though, right? Um,
Uh-oh. Wait,
there's
wait.
not a
Stand
wrong
by.
way to make a dollar, and some tenacity and a little ingenuity. There are multiple ways to make some money. I just feel very strongly that people get really caught up in when it's non-traditional, that it ain't real work. That's been one of the biggest dilemmas,
Oh,
that
that and
because
I
I
think that's
don't
what
work. Mhm. Go ahead.
I think that's maybe why people want a brick and mortar because when they have a brick and mortar, good point. That brick and mortar makes you feel like it's real.
Mhm.
So like if you so your business, if you were to have an office somewhere that you went to and you did what you do at the house, then people would think, well, oh, she's at the office or she's working.
And
And
that
it's
to me is the very reason why I don't want the brick and mortar now, because I have so much freedom. It is not tied to my office. I can't imagine having to be at home and something's left in the office and I'm like, "Oh shucks, I can't do that now because I left." No, ma'am. My job is on here and on this computer that we are working on right
so
now.
your phone and computer that you can take with you.
I take this mic, it fits into my suitcase. I'm maybe recording anywhere. In my mind, my business does not stop because I'm somewhere else. I was on an interview and I was telling the lady, I told the girl I was talking to, I said, hey, my business is what I make it. I make my business. My business doesn't make me. And I think that, if you are shackled to your business in a way that makes you feel like you are at a traditional 9 to 5, and it doesn't feel good, then you probably don't want to be in
That's
business.
the key. It's what feels good to you because I can't say because you feel like you're in a 9 to 5 in your job that it doesn't feel. I work traditional hours for my business.
And
I
you
work.
love it.
I ain't gonna say love it, but it's what I
Wait a
prefer.
minute. What you mean you're not gonna say love it? What you gonna say then?
Well, what I'm saying is that for me to have too much freedom and flexibility, then I don't. I won't. My mind doesn't work that way. I like structure and order. So
Uh,
I have the set schedule so that I know I'm working during that time. If I had a schedule where I could wake up and then do a little work and then I could go back and lay down or I could go run and do something, I don't think I would be as productive because that's not how I flow. I like
Gosh, thank you
structure.
for saying that. Another difference between you and I and how we run business. I don't that structure you're talking about. I live and thrive in chaos, apparently.
Absolutely, you do. Absolutely. Let me just tell y'all, I don't even know how we're best friends and close as we are because it is the weirdest dichotomy of how we do things.
Mhm.
She's all willy nilly and just, hey, now she'll get it done, but it's all, to me, it seems all willy nilly. And I'm just like, I like
But
to
my
stretch it.
chaos is what allows me to thrive and what allows the creative to come through. And I say that and
And
it's
and
it
that's
sounds
what's for me. Structure brings on creativity for me. Having set time and schedule and do like I'm
right.
looking at my schedule to even just scheduling this, we had to shift, and I was just like,
And
Okay.
look, I knew when I said it, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna have to do it to her. I hate it." But here's the thing. That was one of those times where that phone call was worth some money. And so
Well, for me, so I'll tell you what happens with me. I I I take energy and have energy budgeted for a certain amount of time and certain things.
sure.
So what ends up happening when you don't when you change this time frame,
Yeah.
you're going into some energy that I had budgeted for something else. And
Yeah.
so my mind has to shift back and go back. And then once I get into the next thing I got to get, so it's one of
And
those.
I can appreciate that, Michelle. I'll say this. For me, uh, I have had to learn how to appreciate other people's way they work. That
Yeah.
was a struggle for me. It was a struggle for me, not because I didn't care about it, but because, well, shucks, why you just can't, right? Why you just can't. I now understand what that looks like, and that's even how I have to deal with my team.
Well, I'll tell you this, like I go to meetings and different things on the between my 8:30 to 5:30 schedule. I'll go to meetings, I'll do different things,
Mhm.
luncheons and all that kind of stuff. But very rarely do I go to the mall or do I run and pick some clothes up or get my hair done or do anything kind of personal during what I consider the workday.
Mhm.
I just typically don't do that. And so but today is a exception. Like I have an appointment scheduled like 4:30 to get my hair done. Well, that's because I don't have any time. I didn't have any time, and I'm going out of town, so I had to fit it in. But it's just that's how I think.
And so when you say that, I have in my head the things that have to be done in the course of the day. And I go in and out of. Yesterday, I took my work meeting on the road with me. Mom and Elena were in the car with me. They had to shut up for an hour as I was up the road talking to my team about what we needed to get done. I had pre-gamed it by going through what I wanted to talk to, sending them an email ahead of time and saying, okay, let's pull up this email and have conversation about the notes I had. And they were able to answer all the things because I already knew it was fresh.
So see,
Um,
for me, that would just and that's but so talking about FAD businesses, talking about your business being around, how does all of this relate? I think that's important. You determining what type of worker person you are. Some people, the reason why they're pushing for a brick and mortar or coming from offline, they may be having difficulty corralling themselves. Then some people having a brick and mortar, they're more like you, need to be free and flexible, like the piercing place. They may have an owner that's free and flexible. Well, when you have a brick and mortar, you got to be able to be sedentary and be there.
100.
Whereas I can do that. I could be there and be there all day because I have plenty of
Or
stuff.
or you could be like a food truck, which I consider a brick and mortar on wheels that
All
requires them to still be around,
a
right?
brick and mortar, a food truck to me. But do you know the number one goal of a food truck is to get a brick and mortar? Most people who have food trucks, their desire is to get a restaurant. And
Mhm.
I'd be thinking to myself, why? Because if it gets low, you can just go to where the business
And
is.
I'll say this, those cupcake businesses that we were talking about and how there was a big fad and there were so many all over the nation, like just this blew up. There are some that still do exist today in most major cities. They were the ones
Absolutely.
that survived. They were the ones that didn't get caught up in the hype, but they also created a following. They knew understand what their customer was and they knew where they needed to be and they stayed true,
And they
right?
brought in some coffee. They might have brought
Mhm.
in coffee. What happens is with a fad business, you have to have something that's stable to when the fad goes
An
away.
anchor, an anchor.
Yeah, the anchor. What is your anchor? What is your anchor? What do you? Because I give you an example in my industry. So there are so the company that I'm with, we're
Mhm.
trying to get a digital footprint where we can do online. But then you have the companies who are online that
Period.
existed and they
Mhm.
are trying to get brick and mortar in large cities. You
Mhm.
see what I'm saying? Because people want some of all of it.
Mhm.
Everybody's when you're looking for market share, everybody wants to get a piece of all of it. You know what I mean? Or
Mhm.
something. So I think that's really important to think about what works for you, getting that anchor in your business so that you're able to weather all kinds of storms. What can you do? I remember when I first started, I had this quad that I was going to do. Okay, we're going to do property and casualty, we're going to do business insurance, then we're going to do benefits, and then we're going to do life and
Mhm.
health. And I had this big plan, and I had these, and we were going to work in these four quadrants, and blah 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 blah. Babe, listen. Immediately I learned, hey, okay, you gotta have some bread and butter, your anchor. I
Sure.
quickly realized that PNC was my anchor and everything else spins off of that.
Sure.
If you have time to do the other stuff, great, but you got to master PNC first. And if you can't master that, then you could
Well,
potentially go
that
under.
what you just described to me is what any business would deal with, especially a fad business. When you just have decided that you could do better than anybody else who's coming up, and you've got a really, really big competitive environment. The cupcake business was competitive. These people were cutthroat. Do you understand me?
Sure.
Stealing recipes. There were people who were losing all kinds of sleep on this, but in that situation, if you have not made a strategic plan for how you will weather the storm of when the fad is gone, when somebody says, I'm not giving you $6 for no daggone cupcake when I could go get a half a cake. What are you, when you can get to that level, then I think that you will have weathered whether or not it was a fad business.
And how do I build clientele? I think we've done shows in the past about making
Mhm.
sure how you're reaching and engaging in your clientele. What is the benefit of it? What keeps people coming back in? What's drawing them? Especially if you have a brick and mortar, even if you have an online, what keeps people coming back to your website? We always talk about consistency. Being
Mhm.
consistent.
Yep.
Whatever it is you're doing. If I know I can come back on Tuesday and see new stuff on, because my favorite store. I
Yeah.
I talk about them. Ross, if they want to sponsor us, I would definitely, because I am a Ross girl. Get Ross, call me. I would love to. Hi, I'm
Right.
Michelle, and I love Ross. But
Right.
but
Right.
I thought we were talking about that, and I think about their brick and mortars, and I wonder how could they survive in other traditional department stores, because I know. If I go in on Tuesday after Tuesday, they get shipments usually in my area on that day. I'm going to see something new. I know the area that I go in. I go the shoes first, do a quick lap of the shoes, see if they got anything new in my size. If they don't, no problem. If they do, I grab them. I go to the size that I wear in the dresses, pick them up, grab them. And then I know if I need something for an event, I can find it.
Well, what you
And so
said is what you did was there's a segment of people who will continue to come back because they think you have the best. And so fad
then
businesses are
when I
not.
go to other cities,
Mhm.
I know if I go to Ross, they're going to have the flavor of that city. So I can find something like you say, well, all Ross, they're not all the same. They have clothing that kind of go with that particular city, and I can grab something out of there, come back to my area and be popping. So that's what I'm saying. Whoever's buying for them, they have a great, so I think other department stores could have potentially look at that model and see how TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Ross, how they're all kind of still thriving.
So I always say that we consider fad businesses, and one of the things that I think is a phenomenon is there are how many a billion uh, burger joints, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Not so many chicken joints, right? And
True. Like if you try to name you, it's Popeyes, churches, and KFC. Big, boom.
right,
Yeah,
right,
that's it. No,
and
they're in your area. There's different
right.
places.
But what I mean by that is just be, and I tell everyone thinking about the bread aisle and that there are, 200 different breads that you can buy and brands you can buy. Why there are 200? Well, because the one bread company says, well, shucks, I'm on the shelf. Somebody will buy me.
But
Somebody is
you know
buying.
what? And you use that analogy a lot, and so I've started paying attention. I understand what you're saying, but I've started paying attention to the bread aisle, and I've noticed what's happening now. The larger brands have started doing the artisanal, the
Yep,
specialty
that's
bread,
correct.
and they have pushed the little man out. And
Try to.
so to a big degree, you know what I mean? But I'm just realizing everything is starting, and that's all happening because the big box stores are whittling stuff down. They only have so
Right.
much shelf space. So now they're only allowed, it used to be you could go and get several different types of mustard. I don't know any other mustard now.
And if you want those special mustards, you'll probably go to a specialty store, and if you shop in a specialty store, that's because that's what you love. And so I think that I would say this about a fad business when if anyone's thinking about, joining the club for something that's up and coming, social media, influencing, Instagram, drop shipping, all the things that you will see online that you would consider would be fad because people are doing it and making money. I would consider that you think of how you will be the one that can keep the perspective of I'm going to do this in such a way that I will be able to meet and surpass when it's going to be a downslide and everybody's going to be like, well, who's left out in the rear?
Build relationships too, because don't be when you're in your high and you got these long lines and you treat people crazy and all that, because you got a billion people coming in, so you don't feel like you really have to still do customer service, because people will remember that and continue
Mhm.
to come, because Chick-fil-A is no shortage of, you know what I mean?
Uh, my
Because I was treated well when I came, so I want to come back. Their chicken sandwich, it ain't that much better than anybody else's, but the way they treat me when I come,
You know, it's
it's
so
good.
funny. I remember when I started WTA, my mother made a reference to the fact that, well, I see a lot of people doing this travel business. They started around 2017, like you did. I see that this a fad. That's what she said. And 6 out of 10 travel business did not make after, post pandemic. And
Hmm.
so now that I'm one of those 4 that did make it, it no longer feels like and seems like a fad to her, right? And
Right.
just yesterday, I sent out, I spent several $100s sending out to my past travelers a little gift of appreciation, because at the end of the day, I know that there's somebody else who could offer my service, but I want them to continue to come back to me. So a FAD business always have to have that in mind, just like you just said, building relationships so they know and have you on the top of mind when it's time for them to spend the next dollar.
Look at you, best friend. I see you, best friend. Love you.
Love you too.